The sharp crack of the auctioneer's gavel rang out like a thunderclap in the packed hall of the Willowdale Civic Centre. 8-year-old Lily Parker stood near the back, her small hands wrapped tightly around a chipped lavender piggy bank. Coins clinked softly inside with each trembling step she took. Her eyes, foggy with tears, never left the stage. Her heart pounded painfully in her chest, each beat a reminder of what she stood to lose. $40,000, the auctioneer called out, his voice booming over the crowd. Do I hear 45? Paddle after paddle went up. The numbers soared. The bidding war was on. Lily's gaze, filled with dread, swept across the sea of strangers. She wasn't here for an antique or a rare collectible. She was here for Rocky, a strong, vigilant German shepherd. But to Lily, he was so much more. Rocky's ears twitched, and suddenly his head turned sharply. His eyes locked on her. Without warning, the dog jerked forward against his leash, pulling hard. The handler staggered, gripping the lead tightly, but the low, desperate whine from Rocky didn't go unnoticed. The audience quieted. A few gasped. The room saw what Lily had always known, that this dog wasn't just trained to obey commands. He remembered. He recognized her. And he wanted to come home. Grace Parker, Lily's mother, stepped closer and wrapped an arm around her daughter's shoulders. She whispered, "It's going to be okay," though her voice trembled, betraying the lie. This auction wasn't just about who got to take home a dog. It was about Lily's last living link to her father, Officer Daniel Parker, killed in the line of duty 6 years ago. Since that devastating day, Lily hadn't spoken to anyone except Rocky. 50,000, came a voice from the front row. Lily froze. She knew they couldn't compete with those numbers. Noah Hayes, Lily's stepfather, shifted beside them, a flicker of relief ghosting across his face. He didn't think Lily should still have the dog. He believed it kept her stuck in sorrow, chained to a past filled with grief. But Grace knew the truth. Rocky wasn't the problem. He was the lifeline. Lily's fingers gripped the piggy bank tighter. She had saved every coin she could since her father's funeral. She had begged neighbors to let her sweep porches, rake leaves, do anything. All for this moment. Another bid rang out. 55, shouted someone. All heads turned to see Trevor Banks, CEO of a massive private security firm. He wore an expensive suit and a hard expression. It was clear he wasn't giving up. Lily looked up at her mom with silent panic. Grace knelt beside her. "We'll find another way," she whispered. But Lily's heart knew the truth. There was no other way. Rocky wasn't just a dog. He was her father's partner. He was her only voice in a world that had grown too quiet. Then a calm voice broke the rising tension. 60,000, someone said from the back. The crowd turned. Standing with quiet confidence was Walter Green, a wealthy rancher known for his generosity but rarely seen at town events. Grace blinked in surprise. She'd never met him. She had no idea why he would even be here. But something in his steady expression gave her the first flicker of hope. The auctioneer paused. 60,000, going once, going twice. The gavel came down. Sold! Applause filled the hall. Lily stood frozen. Walter Green had won the bid. But what did it mean? Had she just lost Rocky forever? Across the room, the dog stood motionless, his eyes locked on hers. The air around them fell still. Lily held the piggy bank to her chest and whispered silently to herself, "Please, don't let this be goodbye." That night, Lily sat beside her bedroom window, her eyes watching the snow fall in quiet waves over Willowdale. The house was silent, except for the soft hum of the heater and the ticking clock above her desk. In her hands, she clutched a frayed stuffed bear her father had given her when she was 3. Its fur was thinning, and the stitching around one ear was loose, but it was one of the last gifts from Daniel, and she never slept without it. Grace stood in the doorway, watching her daughter silently. Her heart ached. 6 years had passed since Daniel was taken from them, but the pain had never softened. In some ways, it had grown sharper, especially in Lily. Daniel had been a respected police officer in Willowdale, brave and beloved. He and Rocky were an inseparable team. Everyone in town knew them. Then one night, a raid went wrong. Daniel was killed. Rocky survived. But after that night, everything changed. Rocky had become quieter, almost haunted. Lily, only 2 at the time, stopped speaking. Over the years, Grace tried everything: therapy, group sessions, new schools, even moving to a different neighborhood. Nothing reached Lily. Nothing but Rocky. When Noah entered their lives 2 years later, he brought with him structure, support, and a gentle calm that Grace clung to. She had hoped he might help them heal. At first, Lily tolerated him, but the bond between her and Rocky had only deepened. Noah didn't understand it. To him, Rocky was a reminder of a tragedy that needed to be left behind. Grace had overheard him more than once trying to convince others, especially donors and town officials, that Lily needed to let go of the dog if she ever wanted to truly move on. One evening, as Grace walked past the kitchen, she caught Noah's voice. He was on the phone, speaking low and fast. "I'll try again, but I'm not sure how much longer I can keep this up," he said. Grace paused, listening. "Trevor Banks still wants the dog. He thinks I can help tip things his way." Her chest tightened. She stepped into the room. "Who were you talking to?" Noah hung up quickly. "Nobody important." She crossed her arms. "Was that Trevor Banks?" He sighed. "Grace, listen. He's offering Rocky a chance to have structure, purpose. I know Lily's attached to him, but maybe that's the problem." Grace's voice rose. "You think Rocky is the problem? He's the only one she speaks to. He's the only one who's been there for her since Daniel died." Noah's jaw clenched. "I'm not trying to hurt her. I just think she needs to move forward." "And you think giving her father's dog away will help?" Before the argument could continue, Grace's phone rang. An unfamiliar number flashed on the screen. She hesitated, then answered. "Hello?" A deep voice replied. "Mrs. Parker? My name is Walter Green. We've never met, but I think it's time we talked." The next afternoon, Grace met Walter at a small diner off the main road. He was already seated, a cup of coffee steaming in front of him. He stood when she approached, his handshake warm and steady. "Thank you for coming," he said. "I know you're wondering why I got involved." "Yes," she admitted. "You don't even know us." He leaned forward. "Your husband, Daniel, he was investigating a company called Strathmore Labs when he died, wasn't he?" Grace frowned. "He mentioned a major case before the raid, but never gave me details." Walter's eyes were heavy with a quiet grief. "My niece, Elena, worked at Strathmore. She found out they were running illegal chemical trials. She reported them. 3 weeks later, she died in what they called an accident." Grace's stomach turned. "Are you saying Daniel's death wasn't random? I believe he and Rocky were getting too close to the truth. And now Trevor Banks, who just landed a major contract with Strathmore, is after Rocky. Not for the dog, but because Rocky can detect those chemicals. He's proof." The pieces clicked together in Grace's mind. Trevor didn't just want a trained K9. He wanted to bury what Rocky knew. When she returned home that night, Grace walked straight into Lily's room. The little girl sat on the bed, holding a photo of her father. Grace sat beside her, brushing the girl's hair behind her ear. "I promise," she whispered. "We'll bring him home, no matter what it takes." Lily looked up. Her eyes, filled with quiet trust, said everything. In that moment, Grace realized this wasn't just about a dog. It was about giving her daughter her voice back. It was about finishing what Daniel had started. And she wouldn't stop until justice and Rocky were home where they belonged. Grace sat at the kitchen table long after everyone else had gone to bed, her laptop open in front of her, the glow from the screen the only light in the dark room. Her eyes scanned an email again and again, the words searing into her brain. It was a message from one of Trevor Banks' assistants, thanking Noah for his help in softening community support for Grace's custody efforts. Her hands trembled. It was betrayal, laid out in black and white. She printed the email, her chest rising and falling with anger. Quietly, she walked to the living room, where Noah was sipping coffee, staring blankly at the fireplace. Without a word, she dropped the paper in front of him. He looked down, then up at her, guilt rising in his eyes. "Grace, it's not what you think." Her voice was cold. "It's exactly what I think. You've been helping Banks behind my back. You're trying to take away the only thing Lily has left of her father." Noah rubbed his forehead, already weary. "I didn't mean to hurt her. I thought, if Rocky was out of the picture, she'd finally be able to heal, to move forward." "That dog is her anchor," Grace snapped. "He's what keeps her connected. He's why she's even speaking again. You think that's unhealthy?" He looked away. "I didn't know it would go this far." Grace's voice dropped low. "You were supposed to protect her. If you can't do that, maybe you don't belong here." Noah sat still, the weight of her words settling like lead in the room. "I'm sorry," he whispered. "Truly." Then he stood and left without another word. The next morning, Grace met Walter Green at the same diner. She clutched her coffee cup tightly as she told him about the email, about Noah's betrayal, about the donors pulling out under pressure. Walter listened without interrupting. When she finished, he leaned forward. Banks is pulling strings everywhere. But he's sloppy. He's pushing too hard too fast. That's where he'll slip up. I need your help, Walter, she said quietly. I can't do this alone. He nodded. You're not alone. I've already arranged a meeting with someone who might have what we need to bring Banks down, but it won't be easy. Nothing about this has been, Grace replied. That night, she sat beside Lily on her bed, the child clutching her father's police badge in her small hand. Grace stroked her daughter's hair. Tomorrow I'm meeting someone who might help us bring Rocky home, she said. Lily looked up, the tiniest flicker of hope in her eyes. She didn't speak, but she squeezed Grace's hand tightly. The next day, Grace and Walter drove out to the edge of town, to a weathered old house where a man named Henry Cross opened the door and quickly ushered them inside. Henry had worked at Strathmore Labs. Nervously, he handed Walter a stack of documents, test results, internal memos, evidence of unauthorized trials. Elena was right, Henry said, glancing toward the window as if expecting someone to be watching. She knew they were using chemicals that violated federal guidelines. Daniel Carter was investigating it. So was Rocky. The dog is trained to detect one of the specific compounds. Banks knows that. That's why he wants him. Grace's fingers tightened around the papers. They killed my husband to cover this up. And they won't stop if they think you're getting too close, Henry warned. This isn't just about your daughter. These people are dangerous. I won't let them hurt anyone else, Grace said. That night, she locked the documents in her filing cabinet and peeked into Lily's room. The girl was asleep, Rocky's old collar tucked under her pillow. Grace kissed her forehead. Downstairs, Noah waited. He stood slowly when she entered. I was wrong, he said quietly. I tried to remove the past, thinking it would fix everything, but I only made things worse. I want to help now, whatever it takes. Grace studied him. If you really mean that, then you need to prove it. Because right now, trust is all we have left. He nodded. I will. Snow fell gently outside the windows of their home in Willowdale, and though fear still lingered, so did something stronger, determination. Grace knew the battle wasn't over, but for Lily, for Daniel, and for the truth, she would keep fighting. Morning dawned grey and cold, a soft hush falling over Willowdale as snow coated the sidewalks and rooftops. Inside the Parker home, Lily sat quietly at the kitchen table in a navy blue dress, her small hands wrapped around the chipped piggy bank that had traveled with her through every tear, every moment of hope. She hadn't said a word since the night before, but her expression was determined. Her eyes stayed locked on the window, waiting. Grace moved nervously around the kitchen, braiding Lily's hair, trying not to let her fingers tremble. Noah stood near the front door, dressed in his only suit. He'd withdrawn his support from Banks and, without hesitation, donated the last of his savings to help Lily's case. The ride to the community center was silent. The building was already buzzing with voices when they arrived, journalists setting up cameras, neighbors whispering, local officials gathering in clusters. But Lily's eyes saw only one thing: Rocky. The moment Officer Jenkins led the dog into the hall, Rocky's ears perked, his nose twitched, his eyes scanned the crowd and then found her. He froze. Then slowly his tail gave a gentle wag, his body relaxed and he let out a soft, almost relieved sound. Someone whispered, "That's her. That's the Parker girl." Grace held Lily's hand. "Stay close, sweetheart." The auction began. Gift baskets, weekend getaways, signed memorabilia all came and went. Then the auctioneer, a broad man with a red face and booming voice, stepped up to the microphone. Final item of the night, K9 Rocky, age 7, trained in narcotics detection, search and rescue and apprehension, starting bid $2,500. Grace raised her paddle immediately. "Do I hear 3,000? A paddle went up. Trevor Banks, expression unreadable, sat with two suited men beside him. He didn't even glance at Lily. 3,000, bidder 42. 35, came Walter Green's steady voice from behind. The numbers climbed fast. 4, 5, 6. Grace hesitated, then raised her paddle again. 6,000. Lily opened her piggy bank beside her, slowly counting out each coin and folded dollar. Her small lap filled with pennies, quarters, worn bills. 7,000, Banks called out. 10, said Walter. The room gasped. Murmurs rippled across the crowd. 12,500, Banks said tightly. 15. 20. 35, Walter said calmly. People around him sat back in shock. Even the auctioneer paused, blinking. 35 from bidder 28. Do I hear 40? His associate whispered something urgently. Then Banks raised his paddle. 45. And then it happened. Lily's voice, small, shaking but clear, rang out across the hall. Wait. Every head turned. The little girl stepped into the aisle, holding the piggy bank with both hands. Her voice shook, but she stood tall. I want to add my money. The auctioneer blinked. Miss, this is... She's a bidder, Walter interrupted gently. This is her savings. Lily walked slowly down the aisle, her footsteps loud against the wood floor. Rocky stood alert. His gaze never left her. Officer Jenkins held the leash but didn't move. Lily reached the center of the room, held up a $1 and said, This is everything I have, please. He's not just a dog. He's my dad's partner. He's all I have left. The room was silent. Then Walter raised his paddle again. 60. Banks jumped up. 70. But before the auctioneer could respond, Rocky broke his command. He stepped off the stage, pulled away from Jenkins, and walked straight to Lily. She dropped the dollar bill. The piggy bank slipped from her hands, shattering on the floor. Coins scattered like tiny stars. Rocky pressed against her legs and sat, eyes calm, body protective. Lily bent down and wrapped her arms around his neck. Walter's voice rose above the silence. No more bids. 75, Banks snapped. Sold, the auctioneer said, his voice ringing. To bidder 28, $75,000. The hall erupted in cheers. Grace rushed to her daughter, tears pouring freely as she pulled both Lily and Rocky into her arms. Noah followed, placing a hand on Rocky's back. Officer Jenkins moved to collect the leash, but another voice stopped him. Not so fast, said Sheriff Milton. The room quieted again. Department policy says a canine can't be permanently transferred without official decommissioning, and a minor can't be a handler. Walter stepped forward. Policy doesn't account for what just happened. The sheriff folded his arms. I sympathize, but rules are rules. Lily looked up at him. My dad said Rocky protects people. That's what he does. That's who he is. Walter placed a hand on her shoulder. Let's take it up with the council. But tonight, Rocky comes home. Milton stared them down. Then finally, with a tight nod, he said, temporarily. Final decision comes after review. The town council hearing was held the next morning at the Willowdale Municipal Hall. It felt more like a courtroom than a community meeting. Rows of folding chairs were packed with town residents, off-duty officers, journalists, and concerned neighbors. At the front of the room sat the council members, Sheriff Milton, and representatives from the legal board. In the center sat Lily, her hand wrapped tightly around Rocky's leash. On one side of her sat Grace, posture straight, nerves hidden behind calm resolve. On the other, Noah, his jaw firm, suit wrinkled from a restless night. Across the room, Trevor Banks sat with his lawyers, all sharp suits and sharper stares, and standing quietly near the back, arms folded, was Walter Green. Councilwoman Evelyn Brooks began the proceedings in a calm voice. This hearing concerns the placement of retired canine Rocky and a petition to allow his permanent adoption by the Parker family. Due to the special circumstances, we're here to decide whether an exception to department policy can be made. Sheriff Milton spoke first. With all due respect, this is a matter of public safety. Rocky is a highly trained canine, not a household pet. He was trained for detection, apprehension, and rescue. These dogs require certified handlers. Lily Parker is a child. Noah stood before anyone else could respond. I was the one who questioned this from the start, he admitted. I thought Rocky was keeping Lily in the past. I thought letting go would help her heal, but I was wrong. He turned toward Lily. That dog didn't hold her back. He brought her back. She's speaking again. She's smiling. She's alive. I tried to stop that, and now I'm here to say I was wrong. I stand with them, with Lily, with Grace. Rocky belongs with this family. A wave of murmurs swept through the crowd. Councilwoman Brooks nodded. Thank you, Mr. Hayes. Dr. Arman, please share your findings. Dr. Arman Winters, Lily's longtime therapist, stood and addressed the council. Lily displays selective mutism, triggered by trauma following her father's death. For years, traditional therapy brought little change, But since resuming interaction with Rocky, we've seen a dramatic shift in emotional regulation, verbal communication, and trust. Removing Rocky now would be emotionally catastrophic. One of Banks's lawyers stood. We recognize the emotional angle, but the legal framework exists for a reason, and Mr. Banks is a certified canine handler with the resources to provide Rocky with structure, safety, and... Walter stepped forward. Then let's change the framework, he said calmly. All eyes turned to him. I've set up a trust for Rocky's care. It covers training, insurance, regular evaluations, and professional oversight. Certified canine professionals will supervise Rocky's continued training under Lily's care. This isn't charity, it's responsibility. And frankly, Lily's more prepared for it than most adults I've met. Banks's lawyer rose again. Mr. Green has a personal interest. I do, Walter interrupted. My niece Elena worked for Strathmore Labs, the same company Mr. Banks now represents. She died 5 years ago, shortly after reporting illegal chemical tests. Like Daniel Parker was investigating those same chemicals. Rocky was trained to detect them. Banks isn't here because he wants the dog. He's here because that dog is evidence. Gasps filled the room. Councilwoman Brooks raised an eyebrow. Do you have proof of that claim? Walter's attorney stepped forward and placed a heavy folder on the table. Inside were training logs, internal memos, lab reports, and whistleblower statements, documents Henry Cross had helped recover. Sheriff Milton flipped through a few pages. I remember this. Daniel said he was onto something. This is it. Brooks turned to Banks. Your company's pursuit of Rocky, despite multiple community objections, combined with these findings, raises serious questions. She turned to Lily. Miss Parker, would you like to speak? Lily looked up, her voice soft but clear. Rocky was my dad's partner. Now he's mine. He helps me talk. He helps me feel brave. I don't want another dog. I want him. The room went quiet. The council stepped away to deliberate. 10 minutes passed, then 15, then 20. Lily sat still, Rocky's head resting in her lap. Grace didn't speak, but she held her daughter's shoulder. Noah's hands were folded, white-knuckled. Finally, the council returned. Given the unique circumstances, Brooks said, and the measures in place for Rocky's supervision, the council votes unanimously to approve his permanent placement with the Parker family. Applause erupted. Grace hugged Lily tightly, tears streaming down her face. Rocky barked once, as if in celebration. Noah leaned forward and kissed Lily's forehead. But Councilwoman Brooks wasn't finished. Furthermore, Rocky's status will be updated to certified therapy dog. He will continue his work, helping children like Lily overcome trauma and find their voices. Trevor Banks stood in silence. His lawyers quietly gathered their things and left the building as whispers of scandal trailed behind them. Neighbors clapped. Reporters leaned in. Everyone wanted to see the little girl who had stood up, not just for her dog, but for her truth. That evening, back at their small home, Lily sat on the porch swing. Rocky lay beside her, his head resting on her feet. The air smelled of pine and snow. Grace brought out mugs of cocoa, smiling. Noah followed, holding a small wrapped box. What's this? Lily asked, her voice stronger than it had been in months. It was your dad's, Noah said. A compass. I figured since Rocky helped you find your way again, you might like something to guide you forward. Lily opened it gently. The worn brass glinted in the porch light. She ran her thumb across the edges. You know what my dad used to say? She asked quietly. He said Rocky could always find what was lost. She looked up at the sky, then down at Rocky. I think he was right. I hope you felt every moment of this journey. If this story touched your heart, please take a second to like the video, subscribe to our channel for more powerful stories, and tell us in the comments, what would you have done if you were in Lily's place? Until next time, keep believing in second chances and in the bonds that never break.